r/TooAfraidToAsk. Skyrim Low says, in the US, when people talk about racism, why do they only talk about white racists, but racists of other races exist, too? Imagine and have met racists who were not white. I got bullied, verbally and physically, in elementary school for speaking ching-chong and eating dogs, and the kids who bullied me, they were black. My black pair coach casually called this other Asian dude Jet Li all the time, even though he knew what the boy's name was. I took my jacket off at recess, because it was hot outside, and placed it on a chair. Came back a few minutes later, and it was gone. I saw this kid stuff it in his book bag, and I had to tell the teacher for him to give it back, but of course, the kid didn't get in trouble. Or they would stand behind me and mess up my hair for no reason. Thankfully, 4 of my classmates were looking out for me and told the principal I was being bullied. Heck, my mom's friend's son is being bullied right now. They just moved to America last year, and he said his black classmates are making fun of him. I see so many Facebook posts by black people about how they need to eat Chinese food fast before they think it's dog meat. Point of the matter is, anyone regardless of race can be racist. Cricketer 767 says, there's a weird idea in North America that only white people can be racist. This is obviously incorrect. What they don't realize is they really mean that white Americans benefited from infrastructure that was founded on racist principles. Etiorcacus says, the way I have seen it explained is anyone can be prejudiced, but only people in power can be racist if you define racism as using your privilege to keep other races down. But this all just seems like semantics to me. Kirinkso says, that's only institutionalized racism. Racism has lots of forms and shapes. Not all racism looks like that. Entrep1Abe says, Asian myself and immigrated in the early 2000s. Discriminated against by mostly blacks. Funny how they call the racist card so much when they are quite racist themselves. Everything Bajal Juice says, I've seen so many black people being racist and prejudiced. I'm black and I hate it. Black people are constantly talking about things that happen to black people without realizing those same things happen to white people. Or things white people say, but blacks people say and do the same things. Nothing to say one says, not from the US, I'm from Southeast Asia, but I've seen many posts similar to this. I guess some people believe that only white people can be racist, since in the past, some white people, especially those in power, were racists, which I disagree with. I think anyone can be racist. Maybe some people want to be racists without being branded as racists. I think some people tend to hide the fact that there are racist people among every group of people, including minorities in the US. Many people have talked about the Stop Asian Hate situation and why it went away quietly shortly. Waderific says, there are racists in every level of society in the US. That is not an exclusive trait of white people. There are Indian Americans who disown their kids for not marrying another Indian person. There are American Koreans who would never rent a home to a black family. There are black people that would not take a job because their coworkers would be white. It exists everywhere all the time. It doesn't make it right or a more acceptable form of racism. r/TooAfraidToAsk. Hey 177,272 says, does getting into kinkier stuff mean you're less likely to be turned on by vanilla stuff? My partner recently wanted to try kinkier stuff in the bedroom, like CNC and water sports. Please don't judge, and I was fine with trying it, but I didn't want to ever get to the point that just vanilla sex couldn't turn me on, because I feel like that's a horrible place to be in. So I wanted to ask, will trying these stuff irreversibly destroy my ability to just enjoy plain vanilla sex? If you don't feel like commenting on such stuff with a public ACCPLS, feel free to chat/DM me. I'd really appreciate any and all of your experiences/responses. Just Browse in Dishes says, if you love vanilla ice cream and discover you also love strawberry, chocolate, and butterscotch, do you stop enjoying vanilla? HPG_613 says, can't remember the last time I bought just plain vanilla ice cream. Tastisperm Dispenser 2 says, Imho, it's the opposite. What kills sexual desire is monotony. By introducing kinks some of the time, but not every time, you should see an improvement in your partner wanting to be with you, versus only vanilla. Been doing kinks for over 10 years. Still enjoy vanilla sex too, and do that frequently with new and existing partners, even the ones that do kinks with me. Displayer says, the thing that gets me going is dressing up in a dark suit, standing on the lawn on the third Tuesday of the month. Biradarkshintist says, by adding more variety, the basic stuff gets less boring, since you aren't doing it so often. Imagine eating the same food every day, it will eventually get boring. But if you eat that particular food once a week, will you get bored of it? If you do, it'll certainly take a lot longer. Shallow says, no, not necessarily. Can't speak for everyone. Traphead Birdkid says, nope, I'm an incredibly kinky person, about a decade of experience, but vanilla sex is still very satisfying to me. Motonerf says, nah, having a wider variety of possibilities keeps things interesting. Sometimes you wanna get weird, sometimes you want things to be sweet. Batchadu says, I'll go against the grain and say yes. Making out and getting to second base used to be crazy hot. Now I'd rather not, unless it will lead to sex and persistently more adventurous sex. Mama Moaning says, maybe. This doesn't happen to everyone. I'm into some really kinky stuff, but vanilla stuff is still great. I just like variety. r/TooAfraidToAsk. Dudetail7339 says, how was Helen Keller able to do anything if she was blind and deaf? Deluxedelesh says, because people cared for her. Because the people who cared for her made sure she would have an existence beyond being a lukewarm meat bag. Taka-Turn-Sand-Love says, a shout out to Anne Sullivan, tutor and mentor to Helen Keller. Lilaki says, my 13-year-old niece made this huge thing at Thanksgiving about how Helen Keller wasn't real, and I think that's like a conspiracy theory amongst the kids today. IDK lol. Mini Universe 1 says, it started out as a joke, but there are a few people who actually don't believe, I think. Terrible Quote 3561 says, through touch, doing hand signals, and interpreting hand signals pressed against her palms. Dudetail7339 says, how could she have any idea what these hand signals mean if she's deaf and blind? Dulavaraja Joe says, for example, her teacher held her hand under running water and then quickly made Helen sign water. Then she understood that moving her hands to sign water meant something cool and wet she could drink. Anola 1963 says, it still boggles the mind what she was able to accomplish. Accomplishments of Helen Keller, first deaf-blind person to earn a bachelor's degree. Authored the famous autobiography The Story of My Life. Traveled as a lecturer, advocating for people with disabilities. Supported women's rights, pacifism, and civil rights. Co-founded the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU. Horsetooth_McG says, how did you learn of Helen Keller and not learn about how she was able to learn to communicate? Febreak22 says, that capitalized of temporarily threw me for a loop. Cassie LO32 says, the whole she flew a plane. She didn't fly the plane, they probably put her in the cockpit and put her hands on the controls for a minute. r/TooAfraidToAsk. DipDup3 says, How to tell a guy we need to switch things up so he lasts longer. Too long. Didn't read. XM 26 seems to say IF 27 was selfish and callous towards him in bed, but I don't know how else I could have navigated this. I recently had a partner could only really last maybe 2 minutes. After that, it would be very sporadic. He would dwell, for lack of better words, inside of me for a minute at a time, trying to calm down, give /1 pump, and then repeat until eventually finishing. I've had partners before who were similar. I think it's perfectly natural and healthy and okay to be sensitive. I understand stamina is a delicate topic for men, and I know I've never been in their shoes. With past partners that I've run into this with, we would non-judgmentally problem solve as a team, so we could both enjoy sex. But with this partner, I felt alone. Once after sex I asked him his least favorite position, and he said one doesn't exist. So I asked what position he enjoys, but is low-key for him, and he just rejected the conversation entirely, saying he didn't want to talk about that right now. I never suggested condoms, because he had struggled with them when we first started dating. I would try to switch positions, but he would always say my suggested position would make it worse. So I'd ask him to suggest a position and he would seemingly not hear my question, too distracted, and carry on what he was doing. He would not attempt to stimulate me through non-penetrative methods during these episodes. This began happening so consistently that I was beginning to feel like a piece of meat, and I felt gross and disregarded. In my last attempt, I tried to sexily ask mid-penetration if he wanted to please me, and he said yes, so I tried to sexily suggest he go down on me for a little. I felt so weird asking, but I was out of ideas, and he just goes, but it feels so good. And again, kept doing what he was doing. It's not even that I need to orgasm every time. I just wanted him to care. 1 minute later I stopped making any sounds, because I officially just felt so used. I decided to not pretend I'm enjoying myself when I'm actively not, and basically to dissociate until he was done. He manages to notice that I'm quiet and asks what's up. I said, gently in tone, what my body personally needs to feel pleasure with penetrative sex is consistency and rhythm, so this isn't really doing anything for me right now. I was hoping he would be like, oh my bad, let's switch things up. Instead he just pulls out, drops down to lie on my chest, and goes completely quiet. After a little, I was like, are we done here, or do we want to switch things up? I have some ideas. If you're open to it, the conversation that follows is like 3 hours long and too incoherent to summarize. I already knew he had a habit of deflecting my concerns by any means possible in even mildly challenging conversations, but didn't imagine he would do that here. Turning tables, changing his point when he has no rebuttal, insisting he said one thing when he said another, insisting I said one thing when I said another, changing the topic to something I said once that he was mad about but never brought up, arguing semantics, asking for examples, then going down rabbit holes to break down exactly why my example is a terrible example, saying he doesn't understand why I'm making such a big deal of it anyway. Everyone else thinks he is great. He twists these conversations until I don't know which way is up, and I lose my patience. Next thing I'm the one apologizing without the original concern ever actually being addressed. This was the second to last time he did this. The next time, I left. My therapist has taught me to be my own judge. But I feel like my confidence to navigate these types of inevitable conversations in the bedroom is just totally shot. I recognize the vulnerability required for everyone involved in these conversations, so I take them really seriously. I really tried to approach this with care and humility. One thing he said was, how would you feel if I told you that when you're too wet it does nothing for me, so you should just suck my dick? Was I being selfish? What else could I have tried before this moment that I hadn't already? He also said, how should I react to you telling me I do nothing for you while I'm still inside you? How else could I have phrased this? would it be reasonable to expect me to wait until he's no longer inside of me, given how I was feeling? I don't know. I still feel so violated from everything that happened before this conversation. Then the conversation makes me nauseous to think maybe I was being just as terrible. I don't want to subject future boyfriends to this same care and humility if I was really being as cruel as he. Electrical Cow 5147 says, be upfront, the double pump and dump ain't working for me, mate. We need to work on this, so it's good for both of us. This upfront direct approach should give him the kick up the ass he needs. Winter_arrival 6991 says, it's a good thing he's your ex. It doesn't seem like he can accept any criticism, and he was selfish in bed. Physical Job 46 says, I think W6 and a lot of things in life, we don't want to rock the boat and hurt someone until the frustration gets too much and then the floodgates break and it all comes out at the same time. You should definitely have said something, but prob not while he was inside you. Otherwise, he sounds like a fragile, gaslighting frick wit anyway, probably watches way too much porn and has not idea to please anyone other than himself. Ninja4 C0W5L4PR says, congrats. You found an immature boy that only cares about his own pleasure. You really think you can change that leopard spots? The real question is, why do you continue to have sex with this person that treats you like a piece of meat? Your post alluded to X. Good for you. You did what needed to be done at every turn. A universal solution to your sex woes: demand foreplay. Do not spread your legs until successful foreplay has been achieved. If you value yourself, you will do this, and you will ensure you get amazing sex. Boundaries are not the enemy of enthusiasm. All dudes suffer from some form of premature ejaculation, PE, at one point or another. The solution is to have him warm you up with sufficient foreplay first. Cunnilingus is 6, not foreplay. Kissing, caressing, licking, touching, massaging is foreplay. Then have him please you with his mouth and give you that first orgasm. If he's skilled, he can gently coax a second orgasm from you before penetration. After that point it won't matter. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.